Didn't Ramana say that we're not the doer?
He said something more than that as well. And again, it's in the scriptures. We're not the doer and we're not the enjoyer. That's an interesting one, because most people can understand, well, not most people, but many people, when they contemplate, they say, oh yes, I'm not the doer. But he said, you're not the doer and you're not the enjoyer. What you are is beyond any kind of action. Doing.
The witness.
And beyond any enjoyment. Or the opposite of enjoyment, which is what? Suffering. So what the self, what you really are, is beyond any action, never does anything, never, unmoving, motionless. But also is beyond any kind of pain, pleasure, pain, enjoyment, suffering. Never experiences pleasure, pain. We discover this when we give up all the pleasures, all the sense pleasures, and come into the self. For most people, it's gradual falling away. And we happily do it because we are falling in love. Just like the man, if the man who becomes besotted with a woman, he stops seeing his friends, he stops playing computer games, he stops doing all the things he loves, he just wants to hang around this girl. Yeah. All those things he thought he would never give up, he suddenly, none of his friends have heard from him in a couple of weeks. Where's that guy gone? Oh, he's got a girlfriend now, So in the same way, you gladly give up all your worldly pleasures when you discover the treasure, the bliss that resides within you. So while the concept of vairagya sounds quite bleak, possibly the translation of vairagya is dispassion. You give up all your worldly pleasures. It sounds quite bleak, doesn't it? Oh, right, that sounds bleak, that sounds bland, that sounds boring, that sounds dull. No. So we give up all the nickels and dimes to find the pure gold within us. And once you start to discover this pure gold within you, you gladly give up the nickels and the dimes, the pennies. I just said pennies because I don't want to make it too American. Just for the Brits here on the call. What should I say for the Europeans? I don't know. And see, many of us can start to take ourselves not to be the doer, but we still consider ourselves to be the enjoyer. This too is a part of Maya. Maya means illusion, fiction, that which is not real.
Yeah, like it really helped for me when I read that and I realized I don't have to worry about anything. Like it just takes care of itself. Like I'm not beating my own heart. Why should I worry about the next task? It'll just be done.
That's it. There is a problem though. There is a problem with that. The problem is, as long as you believe this body, mind, and world, and together we can call the body, mind, and world the world. As long as you believe this world, which includes the body, mind, is real, you will inevitably worry about it. You might say, well, why worry if I'm not beating my heart, and I'm not digesting my food, and I'm not personally firing the neurons in my brain. It's all just happening spontaneously by life. Life is doing it. Then why worry about anything? Yeah. But then if you consider this body, mind, world to be real, when something serious happens, you can think that when everything's going well. But when something stressful starts to happen, then you start getting stressed. Because you think, well, actually, no, this is real now. So as long as as long as we consider ourselves to be body mind, we'll consider the world to be real. To the same extent as we consider ourselves to be body mind, we will consider the world to be real. So the more you let go of your body mind as being your identity, the more you'll let go of what's happening in the world. So it works. The no doer teachings work only to an extent. They also doesn't show you the immortality. That is your true nature. Most of the teachings that I've come across, this is just my experience. You may have a different experience to this. Most teachings I've come across do not show you the immortal nature, the eternal nature of the self. Ramana's method is one of the rare methods that teach this, that show this, reveal this. Unless you discover that, then the fear is always there. So for example, you can have a realization there's no doership, but you might still be very scared of the body mind dying. Because no one's doing this, but what if I die? I don't want to die, you see? Because there's still an identification with body mind. Just the sense of doership has been reduced. Now, if the sense of doership is truly gone, root and branch, completely gone, then that is realization. And then the immortality, the eternal nature of the self is revealed. But most people, it's not that like that. Most people, it's like, oh, everything's just happening by itself, but there's still a sense of a me that's there. Texts like Viveka Chudamani, step by step, show us how to end this illusion. Step by step, if you read Viveka Chudamani, step by step, read it, make notes on it. It just tells you the steps, tells you what to do. Wonderful. Remember, Viveka Chudamani was written about 1400 years ago, over a millennia ago, probably by Shankara. Again, some people think it wasn't written by him. Most people think it was written by him. There are a few people in the last 100 years who are starting to question whether it was written by him or not. I would suggest we can ignore the who authored it. Ramana, in what I think is Ramana's first ever spiritual work, as far as I can make out, I could be wrong on that, again, not that relevant really, but the first spiritual work that Ramana wrote was he translated the entirety of Vivekachudamani from the Sanskrit, which was the original language it was written in, into Tamil, for the benefit of those people around him who were native Tamil speakers. They spoke the South Indian language of Tamil, but they couldn't read or understand Sanskrit. It was the first, before he wrote Who Am I, before he wrote Vichara Sangraham, which is often translated as self-inquiry, before he wrote Nanya, which is Who Am I, he translated the entirety of Vivekachudamani into Tamil, and it's also the longest thing he ever wrote, from what I can tell. So we have the original Vivekachudamani, we've got Ramana's version. Ramana changed the order of the verses. He didn't do a verse by verse translation. He gave you the gist of the meaning of the text. So not only have we got Shankara's text, we've got Ramana's version of it, which, as I said, the verse is in a slightly different order. The words aren't word for word translated. You get the gist of it. You get Ramana's interpretation of it. This is so wonderful. For centuries, this text, Vivekachudamani, has been revered as, like, I'm sorry to use this word, as a Bible of Vedanta, Advaita Vedanta. It's like the Bible of Vedanta in the sense that it's the instruction manual. And people say there's this kind of a phrase in Advaita, like if someone writes a really good book on Advaita, they'll say, oh, it's like the Vivekachudamani. And they'll say it's a modern day Vivekachudamani. Meaning that it's so good, it's like a modern day Bible or something. It's the how-to guide for liberation. It's basically a how-to guide on liberation. Vivekachudamani roughly translates as the most very highest wisdom, something like that. The highest of the highest wisdom. That's what it literally means. Well, that's a rough approximate translation. The literal translation is Viveka means discrimination or discernment or wisdom. Chud means the crest, which is the top of a wave. Mani means jewel or treasure. So Chudamani means the crest jewel, which basically means the highest treasure. Crest kind of means, like, in English we say the cream means the best. It's like that. So it's the highest treasure, and Viveka means wisdom. So it's the wisdom, highest treasure, wisdom. My rough translation is it's the supreme wisdom. That's a non-literal Tom Das translation. Actually, as Sylvie pointed out probably a few months ago now, wasn't it? That in the beginning, right at the beginning, I always forget this, there's one verse that potentially is sexist. Depending how you translate it. So some translations will give it a kind of a patriarchal tone. But I think apart from that one verse, but there are other ways of translating it where it doesn't have that kind of sexist overtone. And there's a YouTube video I've done on that if you're interested. But basically, if you're not sure, I advise you just ignore that verse. It's just one of the introductory verses. Because I think before I was singing the praises of Vivekachudamani, and then people opened it and read it, and there was like, huh? There's like a sexist verse, and like, I don't know, verse 3 or something, So please ignore that verse if you've got that kind of translation that translates it that way. I think Ramana translates it a different way, so it doesn't come across as being sexist. I have no idea what the original intention of the original translation is, but it shouldn't put you off from reading the rest of the text, which is superb.